Hello everyone, it's Tentafore here, the undisputed grandmaster of movies. And if there's one thing the undisputed grandmaster of movies knows about movies, it's that one of the best movie franchises of all time is of course Despicable Me, or as toddlers call it, Minions. And now that the 7th movie of the franchise, Minions and Monsters, has just been released, I thought we'd make a tier list of all 7 movies. I'll be rewatching and ranking them in order of release, and not because the new movie isn't out yet, I am definitely not recording this in June. I could watch it right now if I wanted to. Anyway, let's start with the first Despicable Me movie titled Despicable Me. Released in 2010, it follows Gru, an unemployed, single-build, so-called supervillain who has a plan to steal for the sole purpose of competing with the new supervillain on the block, Vector Perkins. Oh yeah! Gru seeks a loan from a bank of evil run by a man named Mr. Perkins. He is turned away in order to obtain a shrink ray before his trip to the moon can be funded. Unfortunately, Vector manages to steal it first, and after Gru fails miserably to steal it from Vector's fortress, he comes to the only logical solution and adopts 3 little girls, Margot, Edith and Agnes, whom he later exploits to finally obtain the shrink ray. But by the time he is ready to consult the Bank of Evil, Perkins tells him he's more interested in other villains like his own son Vector. Luckily for Gru, his minions club together and they are able to afford to build a rocket and fly towards the moon. In the midst of this plan, however, Gru has become too attached to his daughters to focus on the mission properly like any responsible supervillain, and his right-hand man, Dr. Nefario, has them sent back to their orphanage. After Gru steals the shrunken moon, he finds out Vector has kidnapped the girls and later demands Gru hands over the moon before flying away. Little does he know that because of how large the moon was before, the quicker it will return to its normal size. Gru finally retrieves the girls by getting them to jump from Vector's ship to Gru's, as if they couldn't have just used the rope. It's almost like Gru wanted them to fall. They watch Vector being launched into the sky and becoming permanently stuck on the moon, meaning Gru no longer has the moon, meaning his time has been well and truly wasted, and all he has left is 3 annoying girls that more or less cost him his only source of income. Such a tragic ending. But to kick off this tier list, I'm giving the first movie the S tier. It's definitely one of the best movies from my childhood, and I also don't think you have to be too young to be entertained by it, unlike the sequels. And now for the second movie in the Despicable Me franchise, Despicable Me 2. It begins with a massive fucking magnet thing kidnapping the entire Arctic Circle, as observed by the Anti-Villain League, led by Silas Ramsbottom. The magnet manages to obtain the dangerous, scary, evil PX-41 serum, prompting Ramsbottom to order one of his agents, Lucy Wilde, to politely invite Gru to work with them. They are aware of his past as a supervillain and hope to take advantage of his evil expertise to stop the spread of PX-41. After saying goodbye to Dr. Nefario, who wishes to leave Gru's laboratory to seek work with the supervillain who's actually evil, Gru decides to join forces with the AVL and is sent on a mission in a mall in which he meets Eduardo Perez, a very familiar looking man who enters a bakery requesting 200 cupcakes decorated with the Mexican flag for an event at his restaurant, Salsa and Salsa. After seeing his very sexy body, Gru suspects he is secretly El Macho, a supervillain believed to have killed himself in a volcano. Meanwhile, several of Gru's minions are being mysteriously disappeared and later dumped onto a random beach. When Gru and Lucy return to the mall to track down the serum, Margot falls in love with Eduardo's son Antonio, and she is invited to a party at his house. Gru is now convinced Eduardo is El Macho, but the AVL ignores him and arrests the owner of a wig shop after they found traces of the serum in his shop. Lucy is transferred to Australia before Gru can find the courage to ask her out. Later, when Gru and his daughters arrive at the party, he sees Eduardo sneaking into a secret room. After finally making his way into the same room with a few minor injuries, he discovers Eduardo really is El Macho, and that Dr. Nefario now works for him, and has helped to kidnap thousands of minions and infect them with PX-41. El Macho invites Gru to work with him to take over the world. Gru declines, and El Macho finds out that both him and Lucy are working for the AVL, and kidnaps her after she jumps off her plane to Australia, and heads to El Macho's mansion to be with Gru. Dr. Nefario informs Gru that El Macho is holding Lucy hostage, and the next day Gru arrives at El Macho's fortress with 2 minions in purple disguises, hoping they will blend in with the infected minions, which they fail miserably to do. Dr. Nefario later manages to infect Gru's jelly supply with an antidote, turning the minions back to normal, and begins shooting jelly at every infected minion at the fortress until El Macho chooses to infect himself with the serum and begins fighting Gru, before being defeated with Lucy's lipstick taser. But Lucy is still being held hostage, strapped to a rocket headed towards the volcano El Macho pretended to die in. Whilst Gru could have easily stopped the rocket, he wasted time asking Lucy on a date, which she accepts, and then they jump off a rocket before being abandoned in the ocean by a pair of minions. At the end of the movie, Gru and Lucy get married, and Agnes finally has someone to call her mother. So what do I think of this film? It was certainly as dramatic and entertaining as the first movie, though Gru doesn't seem to be that despicable anymore. He was never meant to be the antagonist, but he definitely should have stayed a villain. So anyway, I'm giving this movie an A. Next, we have the first Minions movie titled Minions. Released in 2015, it served as a prequel movie to Despicable Me, focusing on the evolution of the Minion race and how they eventually met Gru. At first, every villain they tried to serve ended up accidentally being killed by them, and after giving up searching for a villain, they have nothing to do in life. Until 3 of them, Kevin, Stuart and Bob, decide to search for one again, and chose to travel to America in 1968. I'm guessing they're remorseful because they killed Bonaparte a few minutes ago, and that was years ago. They find out about VillainCon, a meetup of the most evil villains of the world or something. There they meet Scarlet Overkill, the first woman in history to ever be evil, and win her heart after successfully stealing one of her rubies. She flies them to her and her husband Herb's home in England, where they plot to steal the crown jewels. While they fail to get away with stealing them, Bob is chased towards the sword in the stone, which he pulls out and therefore becomes the new king. Scarlet is furious that he has been put in charge of England instead of her, and confronts the minions at Buckingham Palace, where Bob offers her the crown, but Scarlet is such a bitter cunt that she still punishes them by locking them in a torture dungeon while she is crowned queen. After the minions almost accidentally kill Scarlet, she orders their execution. Kevin escapes, but Stuart and Bob are held hostage by Scarlet. Kevin then returns to Scarlet's home, where he accidentally turns into the largest creature on Earth, and saves his friends from being blown up with a fire hydrant. As the rest of the minions arrive in London, Scarlet retaliates and fires a missile at them, which Kevin tries to dispose of by eating. He grabs Scarlet and Herb before he explodes, which somehow all 3 of them survive. Their success in defeating Scarlet is celebrated by the old queen, who then has her crown stolen again by Scarlet. But as she runs off with it, she and Herb find themselves suddenly frozen by a child with a freeze ray and a massive nose called Gru. The minions fall in love with him, but before they can offer to work for Gru, he flies away, never to be seen again. The end. This was also a great film and a great prequel. After long consideration, I'm giving this the A tier as well. And now we return to the Despicable Me series with a third instalment titled Despicable Me 3, which has Gru and Lucy tracking down Balthazar Bratt, former kid actor who lost his career thanks to puberty, but plans to turn himself into his evil TV fictional character by stealing a diamond from a ship. Bratt manages to escape them, but Gru manages to retrieve the diamond. Despite this, the new leader of the AVL fires him and Lucy, leaving them without any job. The minions expect Gru to return to his life of crime, which he immediately rules out, prompting almost all his minions to leave him. Bratt meanwhile steals the diamond again after tricking its museum workers into thinking the diamond in their possession is a decoy. The next day, a man named Fritz arrives at Gru's house and reveals he has a twin brother wanting him to visit him in Fredonia. They arrive there, and Gru loses interest in his brother Drew after finding out he has hair, but Drew manages to tempt him back into villainy. They plot to steal the diamond. Meanwhile, the minions on strike find themselves performing on Fredonia's Got Talent or something, and get sent to prison despite winning. Also, Agnes is convinced by a drunk bartender that unicorns exist, and becomes determined to find one, but ends up just finding a goat. Gru and Drew escape with a diamond from Bratt's lair, and Gru admits he is going to return it to the AVL to get his job back, much to Drew's disappointment. They fall out, and Gru plans to head home, but Bratt disguises himself as Lucy and kidnaps the girls and flies them to Hollywood, with the intent of destroying it in revenge for his career being killed off. Bratt covers Hollywood in bubblegum for some reason, and then tries to burn it up with a laser powered by the diamond. Drew manages to power down Bratt's massive robot thingy just before Gru is lasered to death. Gru attempts to defeat Bratt in a dance fight and fails, but manages to defeat him by instead wiping his clothes off with some dangerous guitar weapon thing. I don't know anymore. They supposedly get their jobs back at the AVL, Bratt is supposedly imprisoned, and Drew moves into Gru's home, only to steal his ship to do some evil villain thing with the minions that Gru's not happy about at all. So at the end of that movie, I'm putting it in the B tier. It doesn't hit as good as the previous 2 movies, but it's still decent. And now for the second Minions movie, Minions: The Rise of Gru. Set in 1976, it takes place 1 year after the ending of the first Minions movie, which was set in 1968. Makes no sense to me either. An 11-year-old Gru reluctantly hires the Minions to help him with his villainy. He looks up to a gang of villains called the Vicious Six, who have recently abandoned their founder, Wild Knuckles, and are searching for a replacement. He goes to the criminal record shop where he meets one of their employees, Dr. Navarro, Tentafore, who grants him access to the underground lair, where the Vicious Six are waiting for auditions. After they turn him down, believing he's too young, he manages to steal a Zodiac Stone that the Vicious Six stole from Knuckles, who stole it from wherever it came from. He is chased out of the store and gives the stone to Otto, one of his stupid minions, who then stupidly trades it for some pet rocket at a children's party. Great work, Otto. Gru leaves home and is kidnapped by Knuckles, who believes he still has the stone. He's then held hostage until the minions can retrieve the stone and give it to Knuckles. But the stone was given to the birthday boy's uncle, so Otto starts racing after him, while another 3 minions travel to San Francisco to find Gru. Some old lady tries to teach them Kung Fu and fails. Meanwhile, Gru manages to befriend his kidnapper Knuckles by saving his life from a pet crocodile. They go on their first mission together at the Bank of Evil and steal the Mona Lisa. While Otto manages to retrieve the stone, Kevin, Bob and Stuart make it to Knuckles' house, only for it to be destroyed by the Vicious Six. Gru leaves his house when they return to find it in ruin, and reunites with Otto and gets the stone back, only for the Vicious Six to take it back and turn into wild animals with it. With the help of the minions' Kung Fu, Gru turns them into rats with the stone, but is unable to save Knuckles, who later dies. Or does he? No, he turns up at his own funeral and drives away from the AVL with Gru, who later hires Dr. Nefario as his very own mad scientist. The end. So what did I think of this movie? Well, I liked the way it bridged the first Minions movie and the first Despicable Me movie, but the main villains in the movie just didn't feel like they fitted in with the average Despicable Me villain, and the story only really focused on a week of Gru's early life. At least in the first movie it was set in multiple time periods. Still, the movie was better than I expected, so I'm going to give this one the B tier as well. We now come to the fourth and potential final instalment of the Despicable Me series, Despicable Me 4. Released in 2024, it follows Gru searching for a villain named Maxime Lamal, who he used to humiliate at school and later successfully arrests him. Back at home a few days later, Silas Ramsbottom, who has came out of retirement and back into the AVL, warns Gru that Maxime Lamal has escaped, and reluctantly Gru's family leave their house and relocate to an AVL safe house. Oh, and Gru has a new son called Gru Jr, and like his father was, he's a piece of shit. Ramsbottom recruits 5 minions to be equipped with some very strange superpowers, making them all big and scary apparently. After later destroying an entire city, they are sacked. Meanwhile, Maxime hatches a plan to turn Gru's baby into a cockroach that hates his father. Back at the safe house, Gru's whole family are failing miserably to blend in with the rest of the neighbourhood, and Gru is recognised by his neighbour's evil daughter Poppy, who threatens to blow Gru's cover unless he agrees to assist her in robbing Gru's old school. They succeed, but the principal is alerted of the robbery and tracks down Gru alongside Maxime. The retired minions are alerted about Gru being compromised and return to save him, but not before Gru Jr is kidnapped by Maxime while the principal distracts Gru and Lucy. Gru flies after Maxime with the help of Poppy before losing a fight between him and Maxime, accompanied by the mutated cockroach thing named Gru Jr. But just as Maxime is about to make Gru fall to his death, his son has a change of heart and stops him being killed and starts attacking Maxime before Gru knocks him off a skyscraper before he is then tortured by the Mega Minions. They safely return to their old home and Gru visits Maxime in prison to further humiliate him, before agreeing to a sing-off of Everybody Wants to Rule the World in Prison. And I really like this ending. It really felt like it was signalling the end of the franchise. It brought back just about every villain seen throughout the franchise, including Vector, El Macho, Brat, even the Overkills and the Vicious Six from the Minions movies, despite the fact they were around when Gru was a kid and realistically wouldn't be alive today. Oh, and Drew and Dr. Nefario both make 4-second cameos at the end. I was wondering if they'd turn up at all. You know, I had this crazy case of the Mandela effect because when I saw the trailer for this movie at a cinema about 2 or 3 years ago, I swear I remember it being centred around Balthazar Brat escaping prison, not Maxime, and Drew having a much bigger part in the movie, but I must have been going crazy. I don't know why Dr. Nefario only had one scene. I'm sure it had nothing to do with anything his original voice actor did. I hope. Anyway, this film was better than I expected too. It was a shame some of the old characters like Drew and Nefario were mostly absent, but I thought Poppy was a particularly likeable character. She really reminded me of Scarlet Overkill, just a lot less unhinged, although that little shit Gru Jr ruined the entire film, so I can't rank it any higher than B. Sorry guys. And now for the final instalment of the franchise, so far, maybe. They'll probably make a dozen more. Released on the 1st of July 2026, the day I'm writing this very segment with the script. Minions and Monsters follow the lesser known tribe of minions, famously including James and Henry, who never travelled to England to meet Gru in 1968, but instead seek a different villain to serve. And in 1927, while they're chasing down a poor villain who they hope to make their new big boss, they meet Max, a movie director who is working on a film about a train robbery. After they interrupt his filming, he hires them to be part of a movie and gets them to try and act in it, which somehow goes well. And then they instantly become world famous. This movie's pacing pretty fast. My god, I never thought I'd see the day where a Minions movie contained this sort of language.
You handsome bastard!
Anyway, as you might expect, the Minions eventually screw everything up, and there's even more horrendous language as a result.
Bullsack!
The Minions are fired for failing to stick to the script, and James is told he'll never get an Oscar. He refuses to give up and starts working on his own movie titled Minions and Monsters.
He said it! He said it!
The other Minions are reluctant at first and prefer to search for another boss to serve, but Henry and another Minion, whose name I don't know, are determined to help James make the movie. They pitch it to Max, who advises them on the film, and gives them a camera to use. The rest of the Minions meet a robot who is repulsed by their foul language.
Salutations, Richard.
No, les dick.
Okay.
But recruits them on some evil robot mission to take over the world. Meanwhile, James, Henry and Ed, I believe his name is, summon this weird goblin who isn't scary whatsoever, that leads them to some more scarier villains. The robot introduces his minions to Floyd, who looks like he's related to Herb Overkill, and the robot later seduces a suffragette. The goblin, named Goomy, introduces the three minions to two horrifying sea creatures who wish to eat them, but Goomy encourages them to make a movie with them, but Henry is very suspicious of them. The minions accompany the robot and his new girlfriend on a date, while the minions and Goomy's friends head to Hollywood, but Henry is still reluctant to create the movie, because he overhears Goomy promising the monsters that they will eat the minions eventually, so he starts fighting them. The next day he is held hostage, which the other minions fail to realise. They start filming and conjure a very sexy monster called Irene, who they ask to eat Henry, but he escapes just in time, while James is still obliviously filming, but then starts to realise the truth, and tries to save his friends just before Irene devours them. Meanwhile, the robot, whose name I've just realised, Dort, tries to make out with his girlfriend, whose name I've just realised is Debbie, but his minions see Irene attacking the city, and Debbie encourages Dort to fight him, which he refuses to do like the pussy he is. James rescues Henry from Irene's insides, while the other minions try to murder her from the outside with a bunch of flying saucers. The other monsters are deconjured or something, and are never seen again. Ed, the other minion, had been filming the entire thing, and the whole thing's made into a movie successfully, and they go down in history. The end. So at the end of that movie, I'm giving it the C tier. It was a pretty good story, but I felt like it was pretty crammed together. I think it was the shortest movie of them all. Also, it felt more like a spin-off movie or some sort of alternate reality story, rather than a proper sequel, prequel, whatever. But it was still interesting to see what the other Minions go up to. Who knows what will happen next when there's 5 new Minion movies by 2036. Hopefully they stop making movies now. Despicable Me 4 was the perfect ending to the franchise. In fact, I'm giving that one the A tier. Minions can move down a tier. Anyway, that is the end of this video. Thanks for watching, and I'm sorry I couldn't get the whole video out last week. But it's done now, and I'll hopefully be back with you soon with another certain movie analysis video. Much more interesting one, I might promise. Until then, I've been Tentafore, and I'll see you guys later.